matter at hand. As you have likely heard, Scottie Pippen has written a book in which he seems to be settling old scores. In his most recent interview, he significantly downplayed the legend of Michael Jordan's flu game. Listen.
Is it easier to play with a herniated disc or to play with the flu? Well, I don't see many bad back games, but I do see flu games. Flu. Come on.
Yeah, he's talking about his own back that he had in that last year, which you saw in Last Dance. Michael Wilbon, you were as close to this team and this group as anyone. What do we make of this?
Greeny, I still don't know what to make of it. I mean, I know that Scottie feels wronged. You know, we talked last week about how underappreciated he feels. I've said time after time after time over the years, to me, he's the most underrated player of his generation. And I stop the sentence there and I say, but what did Michael have to do? If I was sitting with Scottie now, and God knows I've sat with Scottie dozens and dozens of scores of times.
What would you say to him right now?
I would just say, Scottie, let's go back. Tell me what his role was or is in your being underrated. Because he's underrated by a lot of people in this business, maybe among some of his peers, maybe among the ticket purchasing public. How did Michael shape that, if he did? Because I'd like to hear that from Scottie. And I don't, that's the part where, Greeny, I'm just sort of thrown for a loss. Stephen A. and I were there. You were there.
Yeah,
you were covering the team. Okay, so we were there. I remember just for a second for the sick game. We called it the sick game back then. I don't know when it became the flu game. But I remember Scottie holding Michael up physically. Don't you?
Yes, yeah, we all do.
Physically. And in that locker room, it wasn't questioned at the time. And now at this point, I would want to ask Scottie, what happened that night? Let's go back to that night and take this conversation from there.
Let me say this. You know, I not only admire Mike Wilbon, we revere him. We revere him. This man is an institution. We love him dearly. And the one I think about him is not just his writing ability, his commentating ability. The one thing that I know I could never be that Michael Wilbon is such an incredibly nice guy. It's just not me. It's just not me. Okay, so let me be very clear. Scottie Pippen should be ashamed of himself. And I'm going to tell you why he should be ashamed of himself. Because he's going at Jordan as if Jordan did something to him. That's not the case. Scottie Pippen is one of the greatest players to have ever played basketball.
Amen.
He's a 6-time champion.
Yeah.
He was 8 times All-NBA defensive team. This dude is phenomenal. He's a Hugh Hollins call away from potentially winning the championship when Jordan retired. We know the greatness of Scottie Pippen. We also know one thing. He was never Michael Jordan.
Right.
And by the way, that's not a crime.
No.
Because no one's Michael Jordan. And to go at Michael Jordan, every shot you get in an effort to sell a book, I understand it, but it's like, damn, if Michael Jordan did something to you, no problem. But he seems to have a problem with the fact that the world gravitates towards Michael Jordan and not him.
I think that he hasn't told me this, but my perception of this, observing it, is that Scottie Pippen feels betrayed by the way he was portrayed in Last Dance, and he blames Michael for that. Is that fair or not fair?
That is fair because he alluded to that. But where's the evidence? Because these are the things that happened that are relevant to The Last Dance that was filmed, by the way, by Klay Thompson's uncle, Michael Thompson's brother, Andy Thompson, who worked for the NBA in 1998. They filmed it in 1998. They interviewed him 3 years before The Last Dance was aired. You kind of knew what was coming, and all of a sudden it comes. And now that you're selling a book, you're going to get this way. I just think it's unfair.
It's tough for players of my generation because he was everything. When you see the Pippins, the LeBrons, when you see these guys, he was T-Max. These were guys that all revered Scottie Pippen, including myself. But one thing that we do know, people have often said, are you a Jordan or are you a Pippen? And I've been guilty of that myself, you know, comparing other players. It's like, well, is he a 1A or is he a 1B? And that's why I think the disrespect for Scottie Pippen, it's like, no, Scottie was a top 5 player in the league at his best, and we're sitting here saying like, well, he's more of a Pippen. And that I think that can resonate with somebody over years and animosity can build.
Real quick, go.
Yeah. Klay Thompson's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
As one of the greatest shooters in NBA history.
Yeah.
He will never be Steph Curry, and he's okay with it, and so are we.
Well, he's not okay because he's not a top 75. He's there.
And he should have been top 75.
He should have been.
I'll say this very quickly.
I had his name on my ballot.
You know, can I tell you the one thing I'll say about this? It makes me sad.
Yes.
Because Scottie Pippen was the second most important part of one of the greatest dynasties in the history of American sports that brought so much pleasure and joy to millions of people.
Changed
and
the game.
he seems
I grew
to
up there. It's one of the things
it.
that brings me joy to this day. 30 years later, we're still talking about it.
It does not seem to bring him that. And candidly, that's sad.
That's sad.
I'm like... Delighted you are here. We are live above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. As always, RJ is here for Jalen, who's on an NBA Goodwill tour overseas. Michael Wilbon, Stephen A. Smith. We are jam-packed tonight, and here we go. Well, our opening tip. The Los Angeles Lakers have opened a season of great expectation, 6-5. They're 8th in the West, and LeBron James has been hurt a lot. Stephen A., what is a realistic expectation for the Lakers this year?
At this particular juncture, a berth to the second round of the playoffs, and that's about all. I'm not predicting that's going to happen just yet, but they've given us no reason to be enthusiastic. LeBron James looks relatively human. Can we count on Carmelo Anthony to shoot 52% from three-point range and 50% from the field? As good as I know he is and as proud as I am of him of still being in this league, I don't think we can count on those numbers to continue. And then there is Russell Westbrook, averaging 18, 8, and 8, but shooting 25% from three-point range, about 41% from the field. That's not going to cut it. When you look at the West and how loaded, the way the Clippers are rolling, Utah is still relevant. Denver's not somebody to sneeze at. And, of course, the Golden State Warriors. I'm sorry, you're going to need to do better. Those teams are going to be standing in the way, and I don't think we can expect. The operative word is expect. I don't think we can expect anything more than that from the Lakers at this particular moment.
You, Richard?
I think a conference finals right now, if the way they're playing right now to say expect a championship, that's just too much. But at the end of the day, Russell Westbrook gets better. He gets better as the season progresses. So
like he did last year?
Yeah, like he did last year, the last couple of years. And the last thing I'll say about it is that they need Russell Westbrook. They need him. They might not want him, Laker fans, or we could, but you need Russell Westbrook because of all the things you're talking about, AD and Bron.
Michael Wilbon, these are the Lakers, and they have LeBron James. Anything short of a championship is a disappointment regardless of anything else.
I wasn't one of those people who saw championship anyway. It has nothing to do with LeBron. It has to do some with age and injuries. And this notion, this scenario, we went back and forth last week, Stephen A. and I did. And I said, hey, it's to me, it's a fallacy to think that people, and I don't mean just LeBron, that everybody's going to show up healthy in the middle of April when they haven't been healthy all along. That doesn't work. We waited for that last year. And what happened? It wasn't just Anthony Davis who was injured. LeBron wasn't himself. We know that. So I'm looking at this thinking right now they are hype and drama, not of their own making. The hype comes from everybody around them, and the drama is what's going to happen.
Stephen A. looks upset.
But you know what? Last year, he had Phoenix rolling right over to the Lakers, and not only did they not roll over, they rolled through them. And just now, you didn't even include the Suns when you mentioned all the people in the West. They've won 5 straight games, by the way. So I'm just saying the Lakers look like a 5 or 6 seed right now.
A couple of things. Number one, of course, Wilbon will bring up the Suns. He lives out there, so he knows exactly what they're doing and the great work he's doing in authoring Chris Paul's book. Here's the deal.
Thank you.
They are winning, and we get all that. Can't forget the assist leader right now in the league, Chris Paul, in top 3 in steals. But this is what I told you. He brought up age and injuries. You ain't concerned about LeBron. That's exactly why you should be concerned about LeBron. Age and injury. Number 3, when you talk about Russell Westbrook, let's make sure we understand here. This is not an assault against him. We know that he's a future Hall of Famer. What I'm saying is, in Oklahoma, that was his team. In Houston, he only had James Harden to be concerned about. Here in Los Angeles, it's LeBron, it's AD, it's Coach Vogel, a new coach.